This week on LTC News, an update on the Hamilton Canal District construction.
We've broken ground. We're starting to dig out the lower level so we can get the basement in, get the foundation in for the garage.
Warriors for recycling.
So if you see us on your street, we're here helping the city as volunteers. It's as much an educational campaign as an enforcement campaign.
And City Council narrows down the new voting system options for Lowell.
This would give folks from our more recent arrivals an opportunity to run strong campaigns and maybe even win.
All this and much more on this edition of LTC News. Welcome to the 100th episode of LTC News. I'm your host, Krista Brown. There is a surprising amount of confusion regarding proper recycling practices. In order to combat this, Lowell's Recycling Subcommittee and the DPW formed a volunteer recycling enforcement team. They travel from neighborhood to neighborhood, educating and creating awareness on how to recycle right.
There's certainly a lot of things to do. The city itself has a higher than normal contamination rate. So first things first is just educating the population. They need to be aware of, what is and what is not recyclable and the right things to do. There's many different steps that can be taken. All of them on the individual level is very important. Every single person needs to do their own part to make sure the community as a whole is actually successful in the actual recycling department.
And we've been going around the neighborhood helping the solid waste office check on the status of the recycling bins.
So if you see us on your street, we're here helping the city as volunteers. It's as much an educational campaign as an enforcement campaign to try to encourage people to do the right thing and to advise people of what the right thing is.
Typically, the problems that we see deal with plastic bags and plastic sheet material. The wrappers on sort of a bag or a box of water bottles. Those are the typical problems that we've been seeing. Back to the recycling committee, I just wanted to let folks know that this is an opportunity for people like myself, a citizen in the city, to provide input to the city as to what are some of the things that need to be done for the recycling program.
So you're not supposed to put plastic bags in, or you're not supposed to put your recycled materials in plastic bags, like this right here. So the plastic has got to come out.
So right now we're going out and we're doing all of these, inspections, letting people know, getting this stuff on. Right now it's promoting the app, which is big. I want people to go on that. Not only is it letting you know through our Recyclepedia, allows you to find out what is not recyclable, where to get rid of it. There's also other tools there. If you sign up for notifications, any delays of your service, little things like that.
And it'll remind you that today is both trash and recycle pickup. Yeah. It'll also alert you if they're behind in terms of picking it up. Yeah. They're late or they miss a day, so you can download
I'm going to leave that right here. It's going to remind me.
Okay.
And we're working with Solid Waste and Development to improve the quality of the recycled materials in Lowell. There's been a problem with contamination, people throwing trash, things that cannot be recycled, have no value on the recycling market. People are throwing things that are not recyclable in the recycling bins.
One thing that I learned being a pizza lover is that you can put your cardboard pizza box in a recycling bin as long as it's not badly soiled. So we're doing this because the city is faced with rising costs for dealing with recycled materials. So when there's contamination in a recycling bin that's picked up curbside, it costs the city hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to have waste management pick that up because of the level of contamination in the recycled bins. One estimate is that there's over 30% contamination in recycle bins that are picked up curbside in the city. So we're helping to educate residents and hopefully bring that contamination level down and save the city money.
You can download the free app Lowell Recycle on your smartphone to get weekly reminders and updates. Oil isn't the only game in town for energy these days. There are many methods of clean energy production, including solar, wind, and water. But according to the chemistry department at UMass Lowell, hydrogen power may prove to be a strong competitor. We sat down with Professor David Ryan, chair of the department, who detailed some of the research he's conducting in this area.
My name is David Ryan, and I'm a professor of chemistry here at UMass Lowell. We often hear about serendipity in research and the accidental discovery of things. And we were actually, and continue actually, to do work on photocatalysis. But in the process of that research, we came across the fact that our system produced hydrogen. At first it was about 30% hydrogen, and then we realized that, well, that's quite a bit of hydrogen that we're producing. Let's see if we can optimize that. And ultimately, the system was able to generate close to 99% pure hydrogen. The basic idea is, from an input from the driver, you would request power by stepping on the accelerator pedal or whatever, and that would then cause the hydrogen generator to produce more hydrogen, which would supply that hydrogen directly to the fuel cell, and the fuel cell produces electricity. Its only product besides electricity is water. Of course, we need water in our production of hydrogen, so the water is recycled back into the hydrogen generator. So your vehicle would run, like I said, for a few hundred miles on this canister of cobalt that produces hydrogen. When you need a refuel, you pull out that canister, exchange it for a new one, and that cobalt in that canister gets recycled or regenerated back to from cobalt oxide to cobalt. Some of our early work was done in a stainless steel reactor of this type, but basically inside of this chamber is where we put the nanostructured cobalt, and then this chamber is heated. In our early studies, we were using a rather primitive heat tape like this, which we would wrap around this stainless steel chamber and heat it up. We would pressurize it, so the heat and the pressure would cause the cobalt to react with water and generate the hydrogen. And again, it's very efficient. One of the interesting features is that if you release the pressure, the reaction stops. In our system, in our early system, we were generating hydrogen in a batch process. We later went to a more continuous type of system. And this was our first prototype, where the cobalt was put into this column, and this column was wrapped with heat tape and heated, and the hydrogen was generated and swept into this second column, and it goes through a pressure relief valve, and in that system we were able to generate hydrogen continuously for 7 days, and again, on a very small scale. We have many good students. We have excellent students that are anxious to work on exciting projects like this, things that they are interested in and are relevant to society. I think that's a great part of UMass Lowell and the type of students that we attract here.
The City Council has narrowed down the choices for the new election system in Lowell. At their August 27th meeting, councilors voted unanimously to put ranked choice voting and a hybrid 8-district, 3-at-large model on the November ballot.
Under a hybrid system, some candidates would be elected at large, so as presently, and some would be elected by district. And under the hybrid system, there are 3 subcategories. So there's a hybrid 8-1 system, where there would be 8 district seats and 1 at-large seat. City Council remains at 9 members. Option 2, an 8-3 system with 8 district seats and 3 at-large seats. The council would be expanded to 11, 8 plus 3. And finally, a 7-2 system with 7 district seats and 2 at-large systems. And under any of those options within the hybrid category, at least 2 of the districts would be required to be majority-minority, again, meaning that a majority of the voting population, based on census data, would be Asian American or Latino. Third system would be at-large, an at-large system, and the system would be run through ranked choice voting. So all candidates under this system, whether on the council or the school committee, would run at-large citywide. And I should just say the size of the city council and the size of the school committee would remain as now. And voters could vote for as many candidates as they would like to. However, unlike the present system, voters would rank their choices under this system. So they would say which is their first choice, which is their second choice, for as many choices as they feel they have interest or information about the candidates. And the voting would be tallied or counting so that it's roughly proportional to voting preferences across the city.
Community activist attorney Michael Gallagher spoke to us about why he and many others support the 8-3 hybrid model.
The 183rd birthday of the city of Lowell took place on April 1st of this year. And during all that time, we've had a total of 2 Asian counselors or counselors of Asian ethnicity, 1 Hispanic counselor, and not a single African American counselor. So this would give folks from our more recent arrivals an opportunity to run strong campaigns and maybe even win. And it's important in this city, which it feels strongly about being a city of immigrants, which has the best free folk festival in the country, for us to celebrate that diversity. And in seeing different faces, different ethnicities, different races on the council would be a wonderful thing for this city. So for all those reasons and more, I think it would be great. This is a really big deal. It's the last time we had a change of any sort was in 1957. So we're talking about almost 65 years. And this change to a new way of voting could last for generations, in all probability will last for generations. It will change the face of the council, literally and figuratively. So I hope that folks recognize how big a deal it is, and I hope that having recognized that, they'll get out and vote.
The city will be having informational events leading up to the election about how ranked choice works and what the 8 districts might look like. The new system will be implemented for the 2021 municipal election. In the works for many years, the Hamilton Canal District project has been moving steadily along. Workers have graded the parcels, installed drainage infrastructure, and paved the roads. Next comes the parking garage. Joe Ginowich and Claire Ricker of the Lowell Economic Development Office give us an update on this large, multifaceted project.
Right over here, we're having the site for our new 900-space parking garage. It'll be the parking garage that's owned by the city in the Hamilton Canal Innovation District. So you can see we've broken ground. We're starting to dig out the lower level so we can get the basement in, get the foundation in for the garage. You'll see giant caissons coming in a couple weeks. Those are basically giant pier structures, and they're going to get drilled into the ground anywhere from 25 to 40 feet deep. So that way they get into bedrock, and that's what's going to support the foundation and ultimately support the garage. They'll operate like any other public garage here in the city, but for users nearby that you'll probably see a lot of will be folks going to Lowell Justice Center, folks going to the Innovation Hub, to Appleton Mills, any number of projects.
Now that we've got the streets in, you can start to see what we've had in plan for over 10 years now, which are development parcels around what used to be one big mill complex. So right next to me is parcel 11. This is a parcel that has been sort of noted in the plan as potentially another residential parcel here on the canal side. Directly behind me in the National Park Service bus parking area, you can see that the parcel has been squared off to make it a more regular development parcel. In the future, we're looking to do a land swap with the national park that has a very big development opportunity in their parking lot as it exists right now. And then, of course, parcel 14, which is the garage. The parcels on the other side, Wind Development does a lot of residential development in Lowell and in eastern Massachusetts and really all over. But you're looking at about 115 to 118 housing units. There is a 60-20 split on the income limitations for those units. Several of these units are market rate. Most of these units will be available to folks making over about 120% of the area median income. So that's the project that's slated to go in across the way. Wynn is also going to be constructing about 5,000 square feet of commercial development. I think they anticipate putting a cafe in that space, but I think it's also still to be determined. 3 parcels on this side, 17, 16, and 15 are all slated for commercial development, office, maybe some light manufacturing, businesses like that. Parcel 11 was always identified as a residential parcel to be constructed. We've also talked a little bit about maybe a hotel on parcel 11 might make sense. But we do need to have residential development in this area to support any commercial endeavor that also wants to come in here, especially for the garage, where we really need the day-night switch of parkers to make the finances of constructing this garage work. We anticipate now that you can really start to see these parcels and see the potential that it'll become that much easier to market.
For more details on the project, visit the City of Lowell's Economic Development Office's Facebook page. In this week's Sunspot, Lowell Sun Enterprise editor Chris Scott sits down with Jack Clancy, CEO of Enterprise Bank.
Good evening, everyone. I am Chris Scott, the Enterprise editor at The Sun. Thank you for tuning into this latest edition of Sunspot. This is a fairly a significant edition. This is the 100th show, and with me today I have a very special guest. I haven't had this guy on before. I've had a couple of his colleagues on. Jack Clancy, the CEO of Enterprise Bank.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's great longevity.
It's great having you on to talk about the bank. A lot of things happening down there. We talk fairly frequently. We're talking off camera, though.
Okay.
I'd like to I should know this about you, but I don't.
Okay.
How long have you been at the bank? And what was your first position and the involvement that you've had? Now you're the CEO. That's pretty.
So I've been at the bank 31 years, and I actually started with George 7 months before he got the bank open.
Oh, okay.
I was 30 years old, so I guess you can do the math. And you know that I'm.
You do the math.
You know
You're the
that
banker.
you know that I'm 61 now, and I started as the chief financial officer of the bank, and it was just a wonderful opportunity. George and I had worked together.
I was going to say, how did you hook up?
We had worked together at First Bank. I went there when I was 27 as the chief financial officer, and George took me along with him, which was, professionally was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and just a tremendous thing for me personally also. And I got to be honest and say I just sort of put my head down and I worked, and I think George saw in me somebody that would really grind things out and get things to the finish line. And I didn't totally comprehend when you're 30 years old. It's hard to comprehend what George was doing, and sort of the enormity of it. Right?
So over the course of the last 31 years, how has the bank evolved? And I know you pretty well. I know George pretty well, and it seems to me that the same mindset that George had 31 years ago. He's still involved in the bank today.
Right.
He still has that, right? I mean, that's how the bank operates. Could you tell us about that?
We try to keep it the same bank today that it was,
how so?
30 years ago, and keep the same culture, the same values, the same behaviors, and it means that we have to talk about it a little bit more. When we opened the bank in early 1989, we had 18 people, and today we have 525 team members. So you have to talk about it, you have to work at it, but we have tremendous leadership in the bank, and I know you know a lot of the team at the bank, and we have a lot of widespread leadership, and you know, we're really trying to keep it the same bank that it was.
Do you feel that that's an important message for you to send? That you know, you're downtown, you have a nice office downtown, but that they need to, that your employees, that the bank's employees need to see you out there, even if it's just to stop in, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I make sure our management team gets out, Chris, all the time. And you know, day after Thanksgiving, we'll do deliveries to every branch. Day before Christmas, you know, day before.
I get those chocolates.
Day before New Year's. So it's really important to, and you know where my office is. It's on the main floor, but I mean, I do it because I like to do it, Chris. And I love our people. I love our team members in the bank, and it's not something I have to force myself to do. It's something I really enjoy.
When the bank is looking at a potential new site, and not to get into the nitty-gritty details, but what do you look at? You mentioned Lexington. I know you're out in Fitchburg to the west. Your furthest east will be what, North Andover, right? What do you look at when you're trying to scope out a new location?
So you know, most of our branches are pretty contiguous to each other. I think we could get in a car right now and get to any one of our branches in
30 minutes?
30 minutes, any one of them. And so we look for that. We look for, you know, I mean, if you find the right people to hire, you could open a branch anywhere, you know. It doesn't even have to be a good location. You could open in a mobile trailer if you have the right people. So I would say, you know, the right people, you know, like in Lexington, we hired the branch manager before we signed a lease. Didn't have to do that in North Andover because we already have that surrounded. So, I mean, we love to be in urban areas, Chris, and we love to be where there's a lot of nonprofit activity. It's amazing. The branch that got to 100 million faster than any other branch in 31 years is our Lawrence office.
No kidding. And where's the, that's in the Sal's property, right? On Merrimack Street.
Right, in the Riverwalk. Right. And it just, there's a lot of businesses, there's a lot of professionals, there's a lot of nonprofits, and that's sort of in our wheelhouse.
I think this is important to touch on. I want to be cognizant of the time. The bank's affiliation with nonprofits. I know that back in the day, you know, George Duncan was very interested in all the nonprofits, particularly here in Greater Lowell. And I did some reporting on that. But the bank has kept that up. The bank views the nonprofits throughout the valley and the region very important, and they need the bank's help, right?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, we're only going to be as successful as our communities are and our nonprofits are. So, and it's a great learning experience for our team members also. But I think you could look at almost any significant nonprofit in any of our market areas, and we have someone on the board. Generally, they're in a leadership position, you know, in many cases, they're the president of the board or the chairman of the board, you know, or in very significant roles.
You encourage that with your employees?
Yeah, very much encourage it. And, you know, I think it helps somebody grow also. I think of myself, some of my best friends I met, you know, through nonprofit organizations that I've been involved with. And, you know, that whole dependency between the bank, our team members, our customers, our communities. I mean, that's what George built the bank on. And if I can tell you a quick story.
Sure thing.
I remember when I was with George before the bank opened, and he was raising capital. And if you remember, in '89, the economy around here was, you know, it was a disaster. Probably as bad as it got anywhere in the country in the late '80s, early '90s was in this area in Lowell.
Do you remember the Friday afternoon bank closings?
Yeah, oh yeah. And I remember somebody said to George, "What do you want to start a bank for? This, you know, in this environment?" And George's simple answer was, "I want to start a bank that'll be committed to its employees, to its customers, and to its communities for the long term." And he said, "If you do that, you're going to survive in any economic
he's held
times."
true to that.
You know, and he really
and
has
you
held
and Dick and the
true
whole
to
team
that.
has, right?
Yeah.
We only have about a minute and a half left, so I know there's another important thing you want to talk about. And I find it fascinating too, the independence of the bank. Where there's been all these mergers and consolidations, and you know, there's the big banks that are around, and then I know I recently moved some of my business to Enterprise, and I love coming in to see you guys. I can see I can see Sixto up at the Connector branch. You get something special when you go to a locally owned bank. Just tell us about your philosophy on that and why you think that's important for Enterprise to stay independent.
So, you know, we're a very young bank. I mean, 30 years is pretty young for a bank. And Dick Main often uses the phrase that we're early in the first quarter, you know, of the game that we're playing. And, you know, first of all, it's a tremendous business strategy. Think about the strategy of being the last bank standing. It's almost like, you know, trying to own all the land in Nantucket at some point. And, you know, not an exact analogy, but it's a tremendous business strategy, you know, to outlast all the
competition.
competition.
Remember all the names: Andover Bank, Arlington Trust, Lawrence Savings Bank. You know,
oh yeah, and I'll tell you, banks, you know, most of all, it's our commitment to our team members, and to our customers, and to our communities. Because when a bank sells, it's devastating.
Right.
For team members, it's devastating for customers, it's devastating for communities. I can tell you a lot of people bank with us because of our commitment to independence, and a lot of our team members came to us because we're so committed to independence. And
they know who their president and CEO is.
And you know, and George and Dick and myself and everybody in the bank, we have a relationship with each other that we just never want to sell the bank, and we are unequivocally committed to remain independent.
I'm going to try to squeeze in one more question because I know you want to hit on this too. I still like to go to a bank. I mean, I can chat with you, talk to a few other people, right? But my wife will say, well, why don't you just get the app on your phone and do everything online? Where do you see banking heading as you open 2 more branches? I mean, do you think there'll always be the need for branches, or will so many people just do the banking on their phone?
You know, I think there'll always be a need.
Yep.
It's different. And I think what your wife probably does on her phone is a standard routine type transaction.
You know, take a picture of a check.
Take a picture of a
deposit
check. Deposit it. Move money from one account to another. So we're finding that a lot of the routine transactions are going to the digital channel. They're going to mobile. But the human connection, I mean, when you have a problem, when you need to get a mortgage, when you have a technology problem, so I think the human, it's interesting that with all of this technology, the human connection is becoming more important. So it's different in a branch. If you walked in our branches now, the new ones that we built, you don't see a big teller line. You see a little pod, but you see a lot of office space where we're handling consultative transactions, you know, loan applications, technology problems, helping people. You know, not everyone's as adept as your wife, you know, at technology matters. So it's different.
And all that fits in with the bank's overall philosophy about customers and convenience.
Yeah, right? It's amazing how much more human banking is becoming now. I mean, what you're taking out of the equation are the deposits and writing checks, which were much more the routine transactions.
Well, I could talk to you for about a half an hour. I wish we could fill the show on this. I think
fast.
It's a great topic, and I think it's a great bank, and I really appreciate you coming in on short notice. Thanks, Jack. We'll
Congratulations on 100 shows.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for tuning into this latest edition of Sunspot. I don't know who I can bring back next to top the venerable Jack Clancy, but we'll keep it going. Have a good night, everyone.
And that's all for this edition of LTC News. You can find us on LTC channels 8, 95, and 99, online at ltc.org, on Roku in the LTC News playlist, or on Facebook at LTC Lowell. We leave you now with scenes of Nancy Salvage's hydro art installation at Utopia Park. I'm your host, Krista Brown. Thanks for joining us for 100 episodes.